Yes, what's going on? Simon here, and today I'm going to share with you 3 things to never agree to in any rent-to-rent contract. Number 1, never agree to no termination clause. So I speak to a lot of you. I know that at times you get really desperate to get the deal over the line, and maybe you don't understand your agreements, or maybe you're working with letting agents, or maybe the landlord's really adamant they want to use a specific agreement. And that agreement doesn't allow you to terminate the contract early if it's not working. This is dangerous because if you've not got a get out clause and it doesn't work for whatever reason, okay, maybe you don't get the occupancy on your SA, maybe you struggled to let the rooms, maybe just for some freak reason in 18 months you have to move over to Australia and you can't manage it, or you have a personal issue, you do not want to be guaranteeing that rent for the whole 5 years, right? So never agree to a contract without a termination clause, and be very mindful that it shouldn't be mutual. It should be for you only. And that's really, really tricky. Now, it's taken me years to perfect the intricacies, okay, of the termination clause, so that it's not constantly pushed back. But that's really key. And what you want to make sure is that it's not allowing the landlord to termination the clause early, because if they terminate it and it's going well for you and you've got a tenant in or a client in, that's going to be a big issue as well. So number 1, never agree to no termination clause. I've seen people lose thousands like this. In fact, there was one situation that sticks out particularly where somebody got a deal. They were super excited. And what happened was they didn't realize that this deal was in a really bad sort of a state. And what happened was, on paper, it looked like it was going to work. They went and did the deal. Then every single time somebody came to view the property and they saw where it was actually located, they wouldn't go with it. So within 2-3 weeks of setting up this property, this person realized they needed to hand it back, okay? And they lost thousands because they had to pay their way out of the agreement. And I think it was around 6 months rent. When if they would have had the correct agreement, the 2 months termination clause, they would have only lost a few thousand. So it literally could have saved this person £10,000 if they would have used the correct termination clause. The second thing to never agree to is a break clause without conditions. And the reason for this is if you've not got conditions on the break clause and the landlord chooses to break, he could leave you in a really bad position. Now, before we get into that, the difference between a termination clause and break clause is generally that a termination clause can be triggered at any point within the agreement. And a break clause is when at certain intervals throughout the 5 years, you get the option to break given a certain notice period. Now, so you would never give a landlord a termination clause unless you broke the terms of the agreement. So obviously if you don't pay rent, yeah, the landlord should be able to terminate that. But a break clause is used strategically to extend the agreement. So let's say a landlord says, look, Simon, I only want a 1-year agreement. What you can do is you could do a 3-year agreement with a 1-year break. But if things are going well, you can roll on. But the break clause would need a condition. And the condition would need to be around how much notice they give you, at what point they can trigger it, and what happens if you've got tenants in. Because good luck trying to evict or break your tenancy commitment just because the landlord wants to trigger a break clause. And usually the landlord would have a break clause if maybe they weren't sure of their intentions with the property in a year, or maybe they wanted to see how it was working with you, in terms of, first time we met you, let's work together for a year. But be really, really careful about agreeing to break clauses without conditions. If you're finding this useful, if you're finding this of value, do me a favor, just make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I actually saw the other day that only 50% of you are subscribed, which is a bit rubbish. So let's step that right up. The subscribers are building, but I'll be honest with you, the more support we get for this channel, all right? The more input we get, the more subscribers, the more views, the more interaction, the more we're able to invest time and money to deliver more and more content like this. So make sure you log in and subscribe. And last but not least, okay, the final point that you never, ever, ever want to do in a rent-to-rent agreement, this is absolutely essential as well, and that is don't agree to a rent review. Now, I used to do this. It sounds really good in principle, you know, a rent review. It sounds great. The issue with a rent review is, what the hell does it even mean? So I've had situations where we've done a rent review and people have hiked up the rent by 40% because we didn't stipulate that. Now, top tip, in a traditional tenancy agreement, there is a limit to how much the rent can be increased per annum. But in a management agreement, in a rent-to-rent agreement, it's a little bit different. So you need to make sure that rather than offering a rent review, you just want to agree on a set rent increase. I would rather commit to a 3% annual rent increase or a 5% at the halfway point, because at least I know where we stand. And one of the most important things about an agreement is that it's in black and white and provides clarity. So an agreement should never pose more questions. That's really, really key. Now, I'm sure there's loads of you that just with all the content and the advice I give you, you're going to be able to work with a solicitor, invest a few grand or whatever, and get the right agreements for the deals that you need to do. Maybe you've been on courses and they've given you some agreements that you feel confident in. When I started and I went on a course, the agreement had no explanation, no guidance. They didn't tell me what I needed to use for what, and I was a little bit lost. So what I've done is I've actually created the ultimate rent-to-rent agreement pack to help you. So if you're interested in that, visit renttorentagreements.com. Check it out. There's amazing value. All this stuff I've spoken to and so much more packed into this pack, including all my templates, not only for landlords and letting agents, but then also for your tenants and service accommodation guests and terms and conditions and loads of good stuff. So if you're interested in that, head over to renttorentagreements.com. If not, I've hoped that you can just use the value I've said in here and across my other videos and content to produce the best ones you can with a legal team. So I hope you found this useful. You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, of course, and I'll see you in the next video.